Hello, Hillside family. During this time of coronavirus scares and all of the things that we're being asked to do, I wanted to share a few thoughts about praying for our government officials. They have a big job to do right now. And as they're trying to direct different ways that we are interacting in society, my mind is drawn to Romans chapter 13, verses 1 and 2, which say this. Let every person be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from God, and those that exist have been instituted by God. Therefore, whoever resists the authorities resists what God has appointed. And so it goes on. Paul goes on to say other things in this passage of Romans that are important for us. But I just want to focus on that part right at the beginning, that God has instituted our governing authorities. God is a God of order and not of chaos. And so we need government. And some basic level of government is for our good, and it is godly. And so the passage in Romans 13 is not absolute. You know, if the governor tells us to shine his shoes, that's not necessarily something that you have to kneel down and begin doing right away. We also have Jesus' words in Matthew 22, where he says, render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's. There's a place where government has no authority over a human life, but then there are other places where government has the authority of God to guide us and direct us for our good and for the good of society. And yes, it's a balancing act, but it's one that our government officials are trying hard to find. They're trying to do a good job to protect us all. And so whether we agree with all of the requirements or not, we recognize that most of these things, washing our hands, not touching people, being aware of the types of groups that we're gathering in, those are things that we can do with a clear conscience. And they're for our good, and therefore our general orientation ought to be, hey, how can I help this work for everybody's good? Now, related to that, that just reminds us to pray. We need to pray for our president, who, of course, has taken a leadership role in all of this as he has to. Vice President Mike Pence is in charge of the National Task Force. Governor Ducey is having to do things. And here in Phoenix, Mayor Gallego is just has a lot of responsibility. All of these people and more, they have advisors and health officials. They're working really hard to try to find the right balance. And so we need to pray. We as people of faith need to pray that they will find the right balance and that we will all be able to pull through this together. As of Thursday morning, the latest thing that I read said that there were 44 cases of COVID-19 in the state of Arizona. That ought to encourage us. It ought to let us know that if we take steps for prevention, they can work. And it ought to remind us not to panic. We don't need to panic. We don't need to be afraid. We have the hope and the love and the future that Christ offers to us in his life, death, and resurrection. And we also have government officials who have been sovereignly placed by God in order to look out for our good. And so to the extent that we can, we should support them, and especially in prayer. God bless you and keep you safe through all of this ordeal. And we'll talk again soon.